I think we can start now. Good morning. My name is U.S. Singh, and I'm from Department of Pathology. I'll be teaching you parasitology. And it's a good break for you because you just finished immunology. Is that right? And I'm neuroscientist, so it is good break for me also, teaching parasitology. Hope I'll simplify the things. So for parasitology, we have 4 classes, 1 hour each. In the initial 2 hours, we will study intestinal and urogenital tract parasites. And the later 2 hours, later part, we will study about blood parasites. So I have tried to put the whole thing in such a way that everything is very simple. And those things which are very complicated, I will repeat them many times as you will proceed ahead. And at the end of each section, I have put a summary table. And in the 4th presentation, I have pulled together all the slides which are very important. And though that way, we will go through again everything in the end. So to make sure that you don't get confused, there are so many parasites, 12, I think 12.5 maybe. And we have to study all of their morphology, how they look, where they live. They are little creatures. They're very interesting. And so, but sometimes I have found that people get confused. You know, some parasite mixed with other and symptoms mixed with others. So what I will suggest is study only those things which are very characteristic for each parasite. Don't study and remember everything just like, you know. So that way, this is what I call differential study. And that is what I will focus. Just only those things which are very characteristic of each parasite, and other normal things, they will be there, such as intestinal parasites, all of them have diarrhea. But what is the difference between each of them? So let us start. The first thing is, let us start with some definitions. Parasite is an organism that obtains food and shelter from other organism, that is called host. Parasites are smaller than the host. They divide faster. Parasite is obligate when it can live only in the host, and it is facultative when it can live in the host as well as in the free form. Endoparasite when it lives inside the body. Ectoparasite when it survives on the body surface. Of course, pathogenic, you know, when it causes harm to the host. And in fact, we will study only the pathogenic protozoa. We will not study non-pathogenic protozoa. So that one also is, you have to clear in that one, because sometimes you'll find so many pictures, all of them, they look same way. And you'll get confused what we have to study, right? Commensals, those parasites which benefit from the host without causing harm. And of course, host, you know, this harbors the parasite. Primary host, this is important. Primary host are definitive host, this one, in which the parasite reaches its maturity. It matures and multiplies sexually. That is a definitive host. And the secondary host, where the parasite lives its asexual stage for a short period. Dead end host, where the intermediate host does not allow the transmission of the parasite to the definitive host. This is dead end. Once the parasite reaches to the dead end host, it will finish, it will perish. A reservoir, they keep the parasites alive, even for the future transmission. And they ensure the continuity of the life cycle of the parasite. The vector, they are flies mostly and insects. They transmit the parasite from one host to another. Okay, so this is all the parasites of humans. We will not have to study all of them. It is just to show that so many parasites. This one and the next slides. Out of this list, we will study only amoebiasis. Here, 500 million people affected every year in the world, and death is 100,000. Next is giardiasis. 200 million people infected worldwide. In America also it's very common, especially in daycare centers. Malaria, you must have heard malaria. It's blood parasite, and it's very dangerous. In fact, there have been many deaths because of misdiagnosis. Trypanosomiasis, 250 million people infected worldwide. There is African trypanosomiasis and there is one American trypanosomiasis. Chagas disease, you might have heard. When you give the blood, they ask whether you have visited these places, Africa, or have you suffered from Chagas disease. And leishmaniasis, 1,005,000 deaths. So these estimates are very rough estimates. I will not hold that they are correct ones. There might be more, because there is no way you can figure out how many people were infected by the parasite and how many people died because of these parasites. So that is why it is more important for you to study it, because sometimes a person comes with some symptoms you have never heard of, and it's very easy to slip through misdiagnosis, and the person will die later and you will be blamed. So that is why I say, listen me carefully. So these parasites, some characteristics of the parasites, they are prevalent mostly in underdeveloped countries, especially in the lower income group, because their sanitation condition is not very good, hygienic condition is poor, so they are more prone for these diseases. And because there is low mortality, less people die, and there is low morbidity, there is not much suffering. The drug companies, they have not developed too many drugs. It's only 5 or 6 drugs available. They are front-line drugs, only 5 or 6. All of them, they are used for all of these parasites, metronidazole or something. Okay, and there is no vaccine, right? So in South Carolina, as shown here, 1974 to 77, Giardia case, 2,787, and entamoeba is 227. It's a very low figure compared to the general population, right? And 90 to 94, 1,402 and 340. So it's a very low figure. It's not much compared to so many million people. But sometimes, as I said, low figure could be deceptive, because I have read many literature that people died because malaria was diagnosed as typhoid and dysentery was diagnosed for diarrhea, and all. That's very common, because the disease is very rare, and that is why it's equally important to study these parasitic diseases. So let us start with intestinal and urogenital protozoa of man, right? Pathogenic protozoa of man. They infect man, and they are found in the intestine and urogenital tract. Okay, the first one, the top of the list, is Entamoeba histolytica. You might have heard. It's amoeba. It causes dysentery and abscesses in liver and brain. Okay, so dysentery is when there is blood and mucus in the stool. That is dysentery. Abscesses, it is pus formation in the organ, right? And so dysentery and brain abscess, dysentery and abscess in the liver and brain, this is common, is important characteristic of entamoeba. Next is Giardia lamblia. Giardia, it causes giardiasis, and it's very common in the daycare centers in America, and it's very common in other places too. 200 million people affected. Balantidium coli, this is a ciliate, and it is a zoonotic infection, mostly found in the farm workers who work with the farm animals, and they get infected by the Balantidium coli. And it causes dysentery. It is just like entamoeba, but here there won't be any abscess in the liver, brain, or lung, because it is not that pathogenic. Entamoeba it feeds on the human tissue. It releases some enzymes, they proteolyze, and those enzymes are very potent. In Balantidium, there are a few enzymes are released. In fact, it's not known how this amoeba, what is the reason for its pathogenicity. So there is no abscesses in the brain, liver, or lung in case of Balantidium coli. Next is Cryptosporidium parvum. It causes diarrhea. In fact, when the whole community comes down with this disease, is sporadic epidemic. Whole community is affected when there is a flooding, when there is a breakdown of the water system, water supply, and then Cryptosporidium parvum is the suspect. Next is Isospora belli. It causes diarrhea, and it infects mostly HIV-infected people. It's opportunistic, and in normal population, it's contained itself. Human body takes care of itself, its immunity and all those things. And last one is Trichomonas vaginalis. It causes sexual disease. It's frequent and common among prostitutes and prison inmates. So this is the list of intestinal and urogenital protozoa of man. They are pathogenic. There are a lot of things common in these parasites, diarrhea, and in fact they are intestinal, so they have to produce diarrhea. So what you need to know, this is the key for you to have A grade, okay? If you follow these rules, I assure you, you don't have to study more than 4 hours what we have. That is my objective. And for this, if a person comes to you, he says he has some symptoms of diarrhea and dysentery, what you'll do, how you will treat that person, how you diagnose it. All these things are tailored according to this objective. The first thing you need to know, what is the morphology of the parasite. If I show you the picture of the parasite here, will you be able to recognize it in the stool sample or in the blood sample, okay? So remember, the morphology of the parasite in the humans. You don't have to worry in insects, don't worry in other hosts. Only remember the morphology of the parasite in humans, how it looks. Second is geographic distribution, okay? Where these parasites are found. So that a person comes to you that he had visited Africa or he visited Southeast Asia, and after coming here, he has a diarrhea or dysentery. Oh, immediately you will see, okay, it is because of these parasites. Is that right? Okay, life cycle. How many forms of this parasite has? If you kill the another one and you don't kill the another, so it will come out again. So you have to remember how many forms of this particular parasite has: trophozoite, cyst, and what are the vectors by which you can contain the infection of the parasite, right? So life cycle. So again I said, what is the form which is present in the human, and if it is in the food and somewhere infection, so what is the form lives there, cyst form, right? So that you can contain the infection. Symptoms, what are the symptoms? If a person has diarrhea, fever, these major symptoms which are associated with the parasite, okay? Such as I said, Entamoeba histolytica, it will have mucus and blood in the stool. That is very characteristic of Entamoeba histolytica. All of them, they will have diarrhea. But there are some characteristics, that's what you have to remember, right? Okay, pathogenicity and immunity. How the parasites infect the intestine. What is the mechanism? I'll not go in a lot of details, but I'll tell you a little bit so that you can recognize, you can find out, okay, that is how it might be working, right? And the next is diagnosis. So how will diagnose it? What are the diagnostic tools? Of course, swabs of stool or blood, that will be the samples. And microscopy is the mainstay, general microscope, phase contrast microscope. If you look the sample under the microscope, you will be able to identify the parasite. They have some peculiar shapes and morphology and some number of nuclei. These things will help you to identify the parasite and diagnose the disease. Treatment and prevention. Here, how you treat the person and what you will suggest. What are the things he should avoid, such as eat cooked food when you visit outside in underdeveloped countries. You are not sure whether your salad is contaminated or your food is contaminated. So make sure you should know what you are eating, right? So these are the things, and prevention, of course, taking precautions. Okay, so this is what you need to know as we go ahead and study 12.5 parasites, right? Okay. So amoebiasis is the first one. Okay, I have put only minimal information, and they are maximal, means that is what you must know. I have not compromised your course. Everything is there, but only simplified it. And for you, it is up to you how you remember these things. And I'll repeat again and again those things which are very characteristic, because as you go ahead, things might get complicated. This parasite, that parasite, same thing there and here. But I'll repeat as I go ahead and summarize at the end of each section. Okay, so amoebiasis, it is caused by Entamoeba histolytica. It is amoeba, and disease, amoebic dysentery. Sometimes when the disease is prolonged, you can find abscesses, collection of pus in the liver, lung, and brain. Although everyone can have this disease, but it is mostly common in the people who live in the developing countries that have poor sanitation conditions. Hygienic conditions are poor. In parts of Africa, Latin America, India, and Southeast Asia, it's very common. Everybody has this infection. Some infection, one or another, entamoeba, especially it's and even sometimes water supply, there you can find the cyst of this parasite. In US, up to 4% population probably carries the parasite, and mostly found in the immigrants from developing countries. So in this country, it's not very common, but you can find some people who traveled to developing countries, as I mentioned. And so this is a case, typical case of amoebiasis. A 37-year-old businessman, he can be 36 years also. Businessman complains of central abdominal pain, okay? Diarrhea, you know how diarrhea happens because there's a lot of water is secreted during digestion, and because of peristaltic movement, as food goes ahead, water is reabsorbed. But in case of when there are parasites, more water comes out in the stomach, and there is diarrhea, right? Diarrhea and flatulence. Flatulence means gas formation. After 10 days duration, which is started 2 days after returning from a trip to Central South America, his wife and children who did not travel with him have no GI complaints. He has no fever. In amoebiasis, there won't be fever. Mostly in bacterial infections, you might have fever. People get fever, but here there won't be. He has no fever, and physical examination is otherwise normal. Okay, the stool contains mucus and blood. Okay, why? Because entamoeba feeds and the mucosa layer. Okay, so what we'll do, it will proteolyze mucosa layer, and mucosa will come out in the stool. And if it goes further down, it will affect the blood veins, and blood will come out. So this is a typical characteristic of Entamoeba histolytica. So leukocytes and monocytes in the blood. If you see the blood under the microscope, it will have, and stain it, it will have leukocyte and monocytes. And morphology of Entamoeba. This is a trophozoite and the cyst. As you know, trophozoites, they don't have any shape. They acquire the shape according where they are found. Okay, amoeba. That is a very typical characteristic of amoeba. And it has one nucleus, and in the central there is karyosome. This is chromosomal material. And there will be few ingested RBCs because it feeds on the tissue, so you'll find some RBCs there. You don't have to remember 15 to 30 micrometer. Okay, this is just to give you an idea. This is the size of the amoeba. And in fact, this range, all the cells, they are in the same range, because this is unicellular, one cellular organism. So that is why it is same, this size is common to all the parasites, approximation. So the active trophozoite, this is the one which is the main culprit. This is the one which feeds on the intestinal wall, okay? Trophozoite. And it exists only in the host. You cannot find it outside in the soil or somewhere else. This is only in the host, okay, man. Under adverse conditions, when the food goes ahead in the larger intestine during digestion, when there is dehydration, water is absorbed. This trophozoite, it has a sense. It converts and covers itself with a thick wall, that is a cyst wall, and it acquires a round shape, okay? And it is excreted via stool. So cyst, it can be found in the stool, fresh stool, and of course, it will survive all the bad weather, warm and cold, and it can sustain itself in the soil. And when it is contaminated in the food or water supply, and it again enters into the life cycle with trophozoites, right? So trophozoites are metabolically active. They multiply in the intestine, and they are the ones which infect and feed on the intestine. Cyst, it has all the energy reserves, it has glycogen, and it is only a survival mechanism, so that if all the trophozoites are killed in the intestine, somebody should be able to carry out the gene or complete the life cycle. So this is survival mechanism, and it is common to all the parasites, human protozoan parasites, which are found in the intestine or in the intestine. Okay, so this is a fecal to oral life cycle. This is typical of these intestinal parasites. Fecal to oral means, I'll start from here, cyst. Okay, cyst, it is passed in the feces. It is present in the stool. It is non-motile, and it is resistant to hostile environment, and it does not multiply, cyst, okay? So it is present mostly in the contaminated food. If you go outside somewhere, suppose you are traveling to some underdeveloped countries, and you pick up some fruit or some salad. If it has the cyst of Entamoeba, okay, you eat it, and it will enter into the digestive tract. In the small intestine, it can sense, find good atmosphere, it will exist. Trophozoites will come out, and in the large intestine, they will multiply from one to many, and then they will start feeding on the intestine, intestinal mucosa wall. Okay, so existation trophozoite, and this is metabolically active and motile and multiplies by replication. So as food goes ahead and there is dehydration conditions, the trophozoite converts into the cyst, and the cyst comes out again in the stool. And it is not very uncommon to find the people in developing countries defecating outside in the field. And that is where there is a contamination of food and water with the cyst. Okay? So that is what is called fecal to oral life cycle. And this is a vicious life cycle of this amoeba. And it's very difficult to sanitize all the food or all the water which is present there. Okay, this is another way I have depicted. I think I'm sure you'll remember this one, because it has a full cycle of, you don't have to remember each stage of this. Only thing you have to remember here is, let us see like this. Ingestion of cyst in the contaminated water and food. This stage, as I said, it's not very uncommon that people defecate outside. It's maybe sometimes farmland. And sometimes they grow vegetables and all those things, in those farms, okay? So in the stool, certainly there will be cyst if the person is infected, okay? And that cyst will contaminate bananas and all those, farm products. And if this contaminated food, a person eats it, the cyst will go into the intestine. And then there it will exist. One cyst will give rise to 8 trophozoites. One cyst will produce 8 trophozoites. And then trophozoites migrate to large intestine. There they can multiply. Or if they are not able to multiply, or they are going ahead with the food, and then under dehydrating conditions, they will encyst, and they will come out in the stool, exit in the stool, right? It's clear so far? It's very easy, I'm sure. Okay, symptoms. So amoebiasis of 2 types. One is acute amoebiasis, and the other is chronic amoebiasis, okay? So acute means one time, just everything person comes down, okay? And the chronic is, it prolongs, it reoccurs, sometimes little, then it subsidizes, and then comes back again. So acute, the organs involved, as I said, small and large intestine. Symptoms, abdominal pain, frequent bloody dysentery with necrotic mucosa, okay? So this, I already told you why. You should expect that it will happen, because it feeds on the mucosa layer. Chronic amoebiasis, organs involved, small and large intestine, again, because that is where it dwells. Recurrent bloody and mucoid dysentery with intervening constipation. So constipation is hardening of stool. It's very difficult to excrete. Constipation, hardening of stool. Appendicitis, swelling in the appendix. Pseudopolyps, small bumps of tissue in the intestinal wall. Pseudopolyps and perforation, crater formation, because there will be holes in the intestinal mucosa wall, flask-shaped. That is called crater formation. And small polyps, because of the infection, intestinal tissue, they divide faster and they make bump-type pseudopolyps. They're not real polyps. Okay. And liver abscesses, if the amoeba enters into the blood, certainly it will, if not cured, it will reach to liver, and there it will make abscesses, collection of pus, okay? That will lead to hepatitis. And if it goes to lung, it will make abscesses there, and that will lead to pneumonia, infection of lung, okay? Brain, if it goes to brain, it will also make abscesses, pus formation there, and that will lead to encephalitis, swelling in the brain. Okay, this is an example, This is mucosa layer, so chronic amoebiasis, and this mucosa layer is dissolved, it collapses. And here it is crater formation, because the protozoa has already digested the intestinal wall. Again, Drainage of liver abscess. As I said, if amoeba enters into the liver through blood, it will make abscesses. So pus has to be removed. Same way, lung, abscesses in lung, and that pus will have to be removed, drained. Abscesses in the brain, I don't know how that will be removed, but certainly there will be abscesses in the brain. It's very rare if a person is very careless, and if he is without treatment, he just lives for many months. You can expect these things. It's not very common, but you have to remember, sometimes these things create problems if you are not careful, and that is why you must remember these things. Pathology and immunology. Okay, I already explained. Invasiveness of entamoeba and abscess formation is because of proteolytic enzymes. Okay, this is the only protozoan which releases proteases, and they dissolve the proteins in the intestinal cell wall, and that is how it infects. And the immunology, it's very good that you just finished immunology, right? So you are more knowledgeable in immunology than me. So antibodies are detectable in this case, amoebiasis, and mostly in chronic infections, but we are not sure. Their protective value is doubtful. It is not known whether these antibodies have protective value. Okay, differential diagnosis, just like I suggested, differential study, okay? There is a differential diagnosis. So here, in case of amoebiasis or infection by entamoeba, there will be mucus and blood in the stool, okay? I repeat again, mucus and blood in the stool. No granulocytosis. Granulocytosis in the blood, there won't be granulocytosis because the amoeba is in the intestine, right? It's not in the blood, right? Okay, and no high fever. So this is the differential diagnosis of entamoeba histolytica. And when you examine the stool, how it will look like. So if a person has if a person has a mucus and blood in the stool, immediately what we will suggest is stool examination, swab of stool under the microscope. Okay, so this is how the amoeba will look like. Trophozoite, one nucleus and some RBCs, right? And no shape. If you are very carefully monitored, you can see moving also. It is motile also, so little creature will move also, shake like. And this is the cyst. The cyst it has 4 nuclei, okay? Unlike trophozoites, they have 1 nuclei. The cyst, they have 4 nuclei, okay? And without staining, you can see in the microscope. Just take the swab of the stool, and if you look in the microscope, and you will see the cyst with 4 nuclei. It's spherical. Staining, you don't have to worry, but just for your common general knowledge. Lugol stain is for general morphology, to how the shape, what is shape of entamoeba. Iodine staining is for glycogen, because glycogen is present in the cyst, and that is a food storage, because cysts, they live outside where they don't feed, and they can live for many months. So they have glycogen storage so that they can survive, right? Iron hemotraxylin staining, it is for chromatoidal bodies. I did not mention this, and you don't need to worry about this. Okay, prevention and treatment. Better hygiene, of course, that is solution, but it's very difficult to get it. Efficient sewage and treatment and disposal. Efficient sewage treatment and disposal, I said, it's not uncommon. In some countries where people defecate outside and Raw sewage is discarded as such without treatment. So whatever is organism in the stool that might get entry into the food cycle, okay? So avoid these things. Don't eat raw food, just salad and all those things. When you travel outside, I'm not talking about here, because these are the diseases which comes with the immigrants where they are not very careful about these things. And the treatment, as I said, there are very few drugs, only 5 or 6 drugs which are used to treat the amoebal or protozoan diseases. And if you remember one, I think they are common mostly with most of them. Iodoquinol is one, and metronidazole. Flagyl, its trade name, which is you can get in the market. So iodoquinol is for acute amoebiasis, and metronidazole for chronic amoebiasis. Okay? So that finishes entamoeba. Okay? So what to remember? Entamoeba histolytica, blood and mucus in the stool, right? Trophozoites, they have 1 nucleus. Cyst, they have 4 nuclei. Drug, Flagyl or metronidazole. Iodoquinol for acute amoebiasis. In fact, both of them works with both, means chronic and acute. Okay? What else? The most important thing is there will be abscesses in the lung or liver or brain when the person is not treated at right time. Okay? This is only, I can remember, only protozoan or amoeba, it can travel to other organs and infect them with abscesses. Okay? So entamoeba histolytica chronic is associated with abscess formation in the lung, liver, or brain. Okay, next is giardiasis. Etiologic agent is Giardia lamblia. It is also, in addition to humans, it also infects cats, dogs, and birds. And their symptom is diarrhea. And what happens, this amoeba is funny. What it does, it attaches to the intestinal wall, okay, and prevents the absorption of food. It multiplies very fast, and it attaches to the intestinal mucosal wall, and it prevents the absorption of food. So whatever you eat, it will come out same way. Means it will prevent the absorption of vitamins and lipids, and so most of the nutrients and that is why what will happen when these nutrients are present in the form of undigested food, bacteria will grow and there will be a lot of gas formation and all those symptoms will be there, right? So again, 37-year-old man, again I said it could be 36. Businessman complains of central abdominal pain, diarrhea, as I said, why? When there is infection with the parasite, there is more water comes out to digest it, and because peristaltic movement is faster, so it doesn't get time to get properly absorbed, so there is diarrhea. Watery stool, okay? So diarrhea and flatulence, gas formation of 10 days duration, which started the day after returning from trip to Leningrad. It can be India also or any other country. His wife and children, again, who did not travel with him, have no GI complaints. He has no fever, and the physical examination is otherwise normal because it dwells in the intestine. Certainly, it will not have those bacterial infections type of symptoms. The stool is bulky because a lot of things were not absorbed, right? It's just common sense, and every answer will be there. Foul smelling because nutrients are present and bacteria will be surviving on this one. And the floats on the surface. Why? Because lipid is not absorbed, so the stool will float on the water. So that is typical of Giardia, right? And it contains no mucus or blood because the amoeba does not feed on the intestinal tissue. It just prevents the absorption, right? Okay, this is the cases, age-wise infection in America. Year 92 to 97, different age population where Giardia is found to infect. As you can see here, children up to 5 years age, they are more susceptible, and then it subsides. And again, 31 to 40-year-old adults, they are also susceptible to Giardia infection. Why? Because in this age group, people go outside for camping, and sometimes they might drink water from stream water, outside water, and Giardia is waiting, and it will come and infect, right? And also HIV positive people, because in this age group, those people who are infected with HIV, they have symptoms and they are immunocompromised. Okay, so Giardia also affects these people. Okay, this is a typical structure, you know. It's you can recognize in the stool samples. This is also called old man, bearded old man Giardia. This is a flagella. It gives rise a beard of old man with glasses on, right? Remember, it's very typical. You can see in the stool, okay? And these two, they are suction disc. They are adhesive pads like, and they attach to the cell wall, intestinal mucosa wall, right? And in the center, there is axostyle. It is a dynamic structure. It gives bilateral symmetry to the organism. And the glasses, which I said, they are nuclei, okay? So flagella, these two adhesive pads like structures, and two nuclei, bilateral symmetry, and paravessel bodies, there that you don't have to. So you don't have to study all the function of all the organelles. Means what is function of this nuclei and this and that. Don't have to worry. First, what I say first, how it looks. Can you recognize it in the stool sample? What are the things which will help you to recognize? Okay, in the stool sample, I will show you how. And Giardia, they do not have mitochondria. So Giardia also exists in two forms, trophozoites and the cyst. Cyst, it has a thick cell wall. It is spherical. Trophozoite was heart-shaped, and the cyst is spherical. It has a cell wall. It has 4 nuclei. Okay, it has 4 nuclei. Unlike trophozoite, which has 2 nuclei, and it has flagella also and axostyle also. So life cycle of Giardia, what I said, this water system, if it is contaminated, you go out camping and take this water, it might have a cyst of Giardia. So Giardia will enter into intestine, small intestine, and there it will exist and gives rise to trophozoite. They will multiply and go into large intestine, and there they will attach to the intestinal wall and prevent the absorption of food. As they go ahead with the food, they will encyst because of the dehydrating conditions there in the colon and lower part of the large intestine. That is general digestive mechanism you must have read about, right? And then cyst, they will come out, and again, stool, if defecated outside, it will contaminate the stream water. Okay, beavers are the reservoirs here. These beavers, they are the reservoirs. So they have the same. They will ingest it and excrete outside in the form of cyst, and that will contaminate the water supply or maybe food supply also. So this is life cycle of Giardia lamblia, and again there are 2 types, acute and chronic. Acute giardiasis, organs involved, small and large intestine. Symptoms, flatulence, as I said, foul smelling, bulky, light diarrhea. malabsorption of food, lactose intolerance. You must remember this because food is not absorbed, so people will take milk and it will not be absorbed. So there is a lactose intolerance in giardiasis, in Giardia infection. Okay. And chronic amoebiasis, organs involved, small and large intestine, asymptomatic, it may not have any symptom, or it might have the symptom as in the acute case. Pathology, as I said, covering of the epithelium by the trophozoite and flattening of the mucosal surface. That is how Giardia affects, that is how Giardia causes the disease. Immunology, some protective role of IgA and IgM and increased incidence in immunodeficient or HIV infected people. Giardiasis differential diagnosis, no mucosa, no mucus or blood in the stool. Okay. In entamoeba there was mucus and blood in the stool. Here there is no mucus or blood in the stool, and no granulocytosis and no fever in giardiasis. These are the symptoms of bacteria infection when there is more granulocytosis or fever. In case of giardiasis, no granulocytosis and no fever. It's very clear? Okay, this is it's very easy. I feel little bit, use thinking power. You don't have to memorize everything. Everything is just, you can see it and you can figure out. See this flagellate is flagellate, right? If you stain the RUCAN in this stool sample, and see here glasses, 2 nuclei. Adhesive plant, you may not see it, but see how intelligent these small creatures are. They have all the techniques to survive. They have all the techniques to multiply. And they have everything where even in adverse conditions, they can survive for years, many months. And this is another, it's not very clear, but this is a cyst. So cyst and flagellate trophozoite both. You can see that in the stool. But the main characteristic is this bearded guy. That is very, and giardiasis is very common in America. It's not that you have to wait for immigrant to tell you that there is giardiasis. It's very common here also. Most of the daycare centers, they have this. So remember, it's this main thing is how they look. And there is malabsorption of food. So stool will float and foul smell, flatulence, lot of gas formation, giardiasis. No blood, no mucus in the stool, right? And diarrhea is common for everything. You can say, close your eyes and say, if there is infection of the parasite, intestinal, there will be diarrhea. That is how the body reacts, right? So if you answer, diarrhea will not be the answer. You have to answer something which is very characteristic of that parasite, such as, these flagella, number of nuclei, what is shape characteristic, adhesive, those suction disc. Okay, prevention, better hygiene for all of them, just like efficient sewage treatment and disposal. Treatment, iodoquinol and metronidazole. So what I'm doing is I'm going a little faster. What I'll do in the end, when I have some time, I'll collect everything together, pull everything together, and repeat everything fast, okay? So that you will remember here itself. You don't have to worry, okay, 12.5 parasites, and then have to remember how they look and what is life cycle, what is nucleus. So I assure you, as you will go ahead, it will be so simple that you will feel, oh, there was nothing. But in fact, some people get very oh, it's very confusing. I did not know it. There are so many how they look. I assure you, just listen to me. Everything will be there. So there are 3 more parasites. So should I continue? There are 10 minutes. What is the best thing for you? Okay, should I finish all this? 5 minutes? Okay. I'll finish 5 minutes fast. Okay, Palentidium coli, Cryptosporidium parvum.
I think they need a break.
Okay. Okay, I will say. That's why, it's maybe we will start next time. But I'll repeat a few things so that you don't go and start reading everything. Differential studies. Think what you need to think and memorize what you have to memorize. Memorize only those things which I'll be repeating again and again. And if you have any questions, I have contact information. Please contact me by the phone, by the email. You can talk to me. I work very close. And with this, good luck.